I'm a wife and mom. I live in Montgomery. I'm from rural Monroe County, grew up on a farm there. I'm a real estate lawyer. Most of my clients are small business owners looking to lease, sell, buy property. I have a special connection, though, to the Huntsville area. My mom grew up in Coleman, and her mother was a World War II vet and got a job at Redstone Arsenal. She was a missiles analyst for over 30 years, so she commuted from Coleman to Huntsville, was at Redstone during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and so have long held a lot of appreciation for what Huntsville means, not just to our state, but to the safety and security of our nation and the world. And I think that role is only going to grow. I'm so excited about the news about Space Force, and I'm committed to ensuring that Huntsville has an economy and a future that we can all be proud of here in Alabama.
Let's talk about this campaign. What intrigued you about the Secretary of State position?
Well, there's nothing more fundamental than election integrity. That is the foundation upon which all of these races that we're talking about and listening to candidates talk about this cycle. We can have good people step up to run. We can have an engaged and informed electorate that really turns out to vote. But if we don't have elections we can trust, we can't guarantee that our kids grow up in the same country that we did, with the freedoms that our founding fathers intended us to have. And so there's nothing more crucial to the continuation of our country than election integrity. And so I'm running to ensure that we have elections that we can trust here in Alabama.
If elected to the Secretary of State position, how do you think you can best serve Alabama residents?
Like, we need to be protecting the process of voting and elections, not just on election day, but before and after. That means we need vigilant voter roll maintenance. We need to enforce the new legislation that criminalizes absentee ballot harvesting. We need to ensure that we get a form of post-election audit. To do all of these things, we need an election integrity division within the Office of Secretary of State. And I've called on the legislature to create this, a group of dedicated experts who can follow up on election integrity issues. As you may know, the Secretary of State is also in charge of all business services in this state. As a daughter of two small business owners, as a lawyer who's spent her career advising small businesses, there's a lot more that we can do to make it more affordable and easier for small businesses to get off the ground, to grow and to thrive. I commit to reducing fees, to streamlining services, to ensuring quick turnaround. And then when it comes to the big businesses, this is the success stories in this state. I want to work with Coach Tuberville's cabinet. I want to work with our state legislature to try to encourage more of these Alabama businesses that are located here to be incorporated in Alabama. You'd be surprised at the number of businesses that are started in Alabama, that operate in Alabama, that are incorporated in other jurisdictions. They pay hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees to Delaware, to North Dakota, to Wyoming, to Texas, Nevada. And we need to ensure that we have an environment, that we have a body of law that encourages growth of businesses, that encourages Alabama businesses to incorporate in Alabama.
How important is that, kind of keeping businesses in Alabama rather than them going out of state?
It's incredibly important to the future of our state. And I'm, as a mother of two girls that I'm raising here in Alabama, there's nowhere else that I would rather raise my family than in Alabama. We have a sense of work ethic, of faith, community that you can't find anywhere else. But our kids need opportunities here. They need the freedom to pursue their goals and dreams, but they also need avenues for doing that, for having futures here. And in order to build safe and more prosperous communities, we've got to have jobs, and we've got to have folks investing in Alabama. And so it's incredibly important that I work with the legislature, work with Coach's cabinet to ensure that we've got an environment that encourages growth of that business.
Election day is in just a little bit over a year. Tell me some of the things that you've been working on since your campaign started, and some of the things that you're going to be continuing down the road. as we lead to November 2026?
Well, as I mentioned, the Election Integrity Division, I'm advocating for that on the trail because we so desperately need a branch within the Office of Secretary of State that is dedicated to election integrity, but also engagement when I'm on the trail. I think a lot of people don't realize just how many Election Day volunteers we need in order to have secure elections. In any given county, you need hundreds of poll workers, of poll watchers, and so it's incredibly important that we get people of all generations to recognize the importance of not just voting, but volunteering on Election Day. And so that is a secondary mission of mine too, is to help people understand the role that we all play in ensuring that we can build trust in our elections.
I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball at you now. I was asked to ask this question, and it doesn't really involve your race, but today, former Alabama quarterback A.J. McCarron announced that he's running for lieutenant governor. In a lot of the races that we've seen in the state so far, it's been a lot of packed ballots, but A.J. McCarron is obviously someone people know. How can what are your thoughts on him running, and how can someone of that high influence could have an influence on an election like that?
Look, I think A.J. McCarron mentioned Charlie Kirk in his announcement video, and I've seen that on the trail. I was campaigning before the Charlie Kirk tragedy and, of course, afterwards, and I think we are at this moment where people are starting to really pay attention and realize the role that each of us plays. We need to be engaged. We need to be informed. We need to fight for the values and the freedom that makes our country so great. And when it comes to Alabama in 2026, we're going to have the opportunity to elect an almost entirely new slate of leaders. So it's so incredibly important that we elect leaders that we can trust, because this isn't just the future of Alabama for the next 8 years. It's going to impact the future and direction of Alabama for decades to come. The state that you and I are raising our kids in, that our kids will be raising their grandkids in. And so everyone needs to pay attention. And again, I'm still so devastated by the Charlie Kirk tragedy, but we can see the impact that this has had among people of all generations. And even Paul Feinbaum mentioned that as well. So you can see across generations, people have been inspired by his example, and we can't lose that momentum. We need to, again, encourage people to be engaged, to be involved, to step forward, and to fight for conservative values.
What's the message to voters a year out from Election Day?
Well, since we are about a year out from Election Day, but we're also about 200 days out from May 19th. And so I would humbly ask for your vote. I'm committed to ensuring that we have the trust and transparency that Alabamans deserve when it comes to our elections, when it comes to our economy, because this is the state that we're passing on to our kids. We need to ensure that we can have faith when we cast a ballot, when we start a business, and we're in this together. We've got to ensure that we are leaving a legacy for our kids, one that's built on the freedoms that our founding fathers intended us to have.